My name is Steve Countryman. I'm one of the ministers here, and I am very excited that you are here. So whether you've been here for decades or whether this is your first time, and some of you have because I talked to a couple of you, and we're very glad to have all of our Supernanza group here as well. Our mission statement is helping everyone take their next step closer to Jesus. It's all about Jesus. It's all about being closer to Him. And so whether you have been here for decades or whether this is your first time, what we want to do at Woodbury is be a church where you can take your next step closer to Him, because we all have it. No matter if you've been a Christian for 50 years like me or whatever, you've got a next step to be closer to Jesus. And that's what we want to be about. So we want to welcome all of you here. And if you have any questions about that, you can scan the QR code in the back of the chairs, and it's got all kinds of information on you. You can send us an email. We'd love to talk with you personally, but sometimes we got to get an email first to figure out how and when to do that. So please take advantage of that. Last week, you heard me joke about Patrick going down to Harding for a week of intense study because we said we wanted him to learn some more stuff. I am not the usual preacher here. I did last week, but I am not the usual preacher here. I'm in charge of discipleship and outreach. Patrick is. So I sent him, he sent me a text last Sunday night at 8:54. And he said he just watched the service, and he loved the opening joke about him needing to learn some more. So that was good. I said I didn't have a picture of you in a big cowboy hat. If you were here a month ago or something, he put a picture of me up there with a big cowboy hat, which I'm from Texas. That was no big deal to me. But immediately, when I said I didn't have a picture of you in a big cowboy hat, laughing face emoji, he said, "And you never will." I thought that was pretty good. After a week of intense study down south, I was sent this picture Friday night. I don't know if you guys can see it, but Patrick, he didn't send me the picture. I didn't make the picture, but I was sent this Friday night, and I just thought we're going to have to put that up on the screen. All right. It is Pastor Appreciation Month, and seriously, Patrick and I joke with each other a lot, but seriously, where is Patrick? Okay, there he is. We do appreciate you, and we appreciate the fact that you're willing to go down. You take classes online. You go down for a week of intense study. You are always trying to do a good job. You work hard at it, and we really do appreciate what you do for this church. And since you'll be back up here next week, we'll just call a truce on all the pictures. And Patrick did. This is our last week in a series that we're about to talk about. Next week, Patrick's starting a brand new series, and it's called What Happens After We Die. So please come back and join us for that series. This series, the last week we're doing, is called Immeasurably More. And this has been a series about these characteristics about being a follower of Jesus Christ, these characteristics that we want Woodbury as a congregation, as a church, to be about. And so the first week, Patrick talked about intentional belonging. And we want to be a place where not only do we feel that we are accepted and belong to Jesus Christ, but we want to be a place where all of the visitors, everyone that comes in, knew that they feel that as well, that they feel that belonging. And then he gave a lesson on essential worship. Our life is to be about that. When we come here, we're not just trying to entertain. We're not just trying to do something that we enjoy. We're trying to worship God and praise Him and honor Him for the things He's done for us. Then we talked about joy-filled faith. We are missing out if we do not go through life with joy. That is a part of what Jesus wants for us, and He lived that way. Last week we talked about radical generosity. And it wasn't just about giving money, but it's about giving of our time and giving love and giving grace and giving forgiveness to everyone we meet in every situation. And as Christians, we are to be very generous with all those things. And today, the last week, we're talking about an everyday mission. An everyday mission. And what does that mean? And I hope that please, if you missed some of these weeks, if you're here for the first time, go back. These things are on YouTube. They're probably on our website, and you can listen to these messages, because if you've got questions about what Woodbury Church wants to be as far as following Jesus and honoring him, these are going to explain a lot of that. Before I go on with this everyday mission, I want to say something mainly to Supernanza, mainly to the young adults who helped. There's some things happening. There's in our country, in our world, and we need to be aware of it, because it's not in the regular news. Our media doesn't talk about these things, but it has to do with, you guys had a whole weekend where you talked about God reaching out to you. That's what he does. And then this lesson this week is about us reaching out to other people to put them in a relationship with God as well. And I think I want to encourage all of you, but especially our younger generation, whether you're teens, high school, junior high, high school, whether you're young adults, whether you're in college or not. There's a lot of things that have been going on with that younger generation over the last few years. And it kind of started with COVID. And that, that just messed up a lot of things in life for them. And if you're just entering junior high, then you might have not had huge, you remember it for sure, but it may not have affected your life in the ways that, like, if you're getting out of college or those things really messed up that part of your life. There's a lot of anxiety among our young people and younger generations. And when you look at our culture, when you look at all the fighting, when you look at our politics, when you look at the shootings, when you look at violence and hatred that is in our world, then you have a right to be a little bit anxious about those things. And yet, there is hope, and those things are all on the increase, and yet revival is on the increase. Look at this. I want to give you a few examples. This started in Auburn University. My wife let me listen to a podcast, or told me about a podcast that I listened to by Jenny Allen, and she talked about this young lady named Tanya Pruitt. And Tanya Pruitt was nobody famous, and she was just a middle-aged woman that felt like she should work with college students. She started doing that with just a couple, and then she had this opportunity to do something at Auburn University. And so they set this up, and they were like, we don't know, that maybe 100 people, maybe 200 people. And what happened was 5,000 college students showed up at Auburn University. Late that night, after the meeting, they went to this lake near campus, and in the middle of the night, baptized 200 of them. And again, spur of the moment. What happened was Fox News caught a piece of this, talked about what was going on at Auburn University, and then Tanya Pruitt got all these invitations from all these other campuses. And then, so one other example is she went to Florida State, baptized 350 students in a fountain. So there's this fountain on campus that's typically associated with, hey, when you turn 21, you're going to, get yourself, there's some stuff with, drinking and alcohol and stuff that's what the fountain has kind of been known for. And then they baptized 350 students in that fountain when they were there at Florida State. Overall, of these 17, did I have that on there? They ended up going, 17 stadiums, 100,000 students have attended these events. And it gives me such joy. It gives me such hope for what God is doing in the younger generation. They're going to be more prepared for some of this everyday mission that we're talking about today than maybe some of us older folks are. Another example with The Chosen. I don't know if you've watched The Chosen, but The Chosen was released back in the theaters, and then it was specific to Amazon Prime. So if you had Amazon Prime, you got to watch it like we did. But a couple of weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, I think, it was released on a broader free on their app and other ways. And in 10 days after season 5 was released, it drew 4 million views across the world. And overall, The Chosen has been watched in 175 countries in the world, and season 5 was translated into 50 languages. There's something going on. God is doing something, and our media doesn't tell us all these things, so we've got to look for it, but when you look for it, you see what God is doing. There's only 195 countries in the world, and the fact that The Chosen is being watched in 175 of them is amazing. God is doing things, and I want to commend our younger generation, high school, college age, young adults. God is preparing you, I believe. And hopefully we'll learn from you, and you can learn from him, and we'll be better for it. All right, everyday mission. What is everyday mission? What does it mean? You know that my wife and I spent 5 years in Thailand, overseas doing mission work, planting a church there. We came back here. We work cross-culturally with the Hmong people and Hmong refugees, and they have a church now that meets here at 2 o'clock every Sunday. And so sometimes when we think of the word mission, we think, oh, it's overseas stuff, it's cross-cultural stuff, and it's not. Okay, that's not all it is. It is that, but I want you to think as we talk about everyday mission today that you have a mission as well. And that everyday mission is not about a program or an event. It's not the staff here getting creative and saying, here's what we're going to do. It's more about what we do with our life in prayer, creating margin in our lives, being generous like we talked about last week. Go back and listen to it. How do we live our lives as followers of Jesus every day? That's really what the everyday mission is about. There's a whole genre of churches that call themselves missional churches. There's degree programs that are focused on that. There's lots and lots of books that have been written about that, being missional and having a missional church. And I kind of have a love-hate relationship with the term because I love the fact that these people want to be mission-minded and they want to outreach to their community and they want to create community and intimacy, and in those relationships reach out to lost people and people that don't know Jesus. I love that part of it. But the part I don't like is that we had to create a term to say missional churches. should just be churches, right? We should all be doing that every time, everywhere, and we're not. We're not all, but we want to say that Woodbury wants to be a church that is reaching out to our community, and that's part of what it is. I don't know if you've heard of Richard Foster. I don't know, this next slide, I don't know if you know the book Celebration of Discipline. It was written in 1978, so it's an older book, but the discipline part is talking about prayer, talking about study, talking about fasting, talking about serving, talking about solitude and having some quiet time and alone time, and many other things. And it's been reprinted and reprinted and reprinted. And one of the things he says early in the book is superficiality is the curse of our age. In other words, we have grown to where our relationships are superficial. We don't have any depth. We don't have the intimacy. We don't have the community that God really wants us to have. In our relationship with Him, maybe we don't have the depth that He wants us to have, that He wants to bless us with. And in our relationship with others, we don't have the depth. Our culture, the speed of life takes away that depth and time that it takes to be more than just superficial. I'm going to read a quote from him on these next two slides. Just listen. We must not be led to believe that the disciplines, fasting, prayer, solitude, service, are for spiritual giants and hence beyond our reach, or that they're for contemplatives who devote all their time to prayer and meditation. Far from it. God intends the disciplines of the spiritual life to be for ordinary human beings. I think that includes all of you. And me too. People who have jobs, who care for children, who must wash dishes and mow lawns. In fact, the disciplines are best exercised in the midst of our normal daily activities. If they are to have any transforming effect, the effect must be found in the ordinary junctures of human life, in our relationships with our husband or our wife, our brothers and sisters, our friends, and our neighbors. Everyday mission means that God wants to transform our life. The average, mundane, as Patrick has said this before, you see miracles, God at work in the mundane areas of life. We need to ask God into all of these parts of our everyday life so that we can be changed, so that we can be transformed, and then our relationships, whether it's our family, whether it's our neighbors, whatever social circle we're in, then God will help transform them. Very important for us to do. If I was to sum all of what he says in the book up in one point, he's got many good points. I encourage you to get a copy and read. You can find it online for free, PDFs. It's one of those books that's so popular that is everywhere. You don't even have to buy it, but the copies are everywhere. If I could tell you what it means in 3 sentences. First sentence, slow down. Second sentence, slow down. And the third sentence, slow down. We've got to be able to do this in our lives, and it's sometimes an uphill battle for us, but it is necessary to achieve the depth and leave the superficial areas and relationships of our lives that we have become. As I was thinking about passages for this everyday mission, I came up with these. I'm going to just read them and move on really quickly. Matthew chapter 5, 14 through 16 says, "You are the light of the world, like a city on a hilltop that cannot be hidden. No one lights a lamp and then puts it under a basket. Instead, a lamp is placed on a stand where it gives light to everyone in the house. In the same way, let your good deeds shine out for all to see, so that everyone will praise your heavenly Father." Now, I don't know about you, but when I read that verse, I think about the good deeds. I think about shining. I think about city on a hill, all of that light. But, if you do good things, if you do good deeds, for those people to praise your Father in heaven, there's something special about it. There's something else going on. It's not just your good deeds. It's your good deeds, but with this life of love and this relationship with Jesus Christ, that the power of God works in that to where they see it. They see something different. They see something unique. You're not just being nice. And then they say, hey, maybe I should think about God and work with him in my life too. So that they praise your Father in heaven. The next one is 1 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 8. Paul says to the Thessalonians, "We loved you so much that we shared with you not only God's good news, but our own lives too." So as Christians on everyday mission, we tell people about Jesus, we tell people what the gospel, the good news is, but we don't just tell it, we don't just speak it. We share our lives as well. And when we're sharing our lives, that's the depth that we're looking for, that God is looking for, that will then transform then. The next one, 1 Peter 3:15. "You must worship Christ as Lord of your life. And if someone asks about your hope as a believer, always be ready to explain it." Everyday mission. But the part that hits me is that it's not just being ready to explain that scares us sometimes. The first thing you need to do is worship Christ as Lord of your life. Set him apart in your heart. Jesus Christ as Lord in your heart. That's what some versions say. Once you've done that, then the other is going to happen in your life, and you'll be able to share. It's not something you have to learn. All right, the passage I really settled on to focus on is Colossians chapter 4, starting in verse 2. This is what Eva read for us. "Devote yourselves to prayer with an alert mind and a thankful heart. Pray for us, too, that God will give us many opportunities to speak about his mysterious plan concerning Christ." That is why I am here in chains. Paul's in prison as he's writing it. This letter back to the Colossians. Verse 4, "Pray that I will proclaim his message as clearly as I should. Live wisely among those who are not believers, and make the most of every opportunity. Let your conversation be gracious and attractive, so that you will have the right response for everyone." Eva's read it. I've read it. I want you to jot this down, Colossians 4, 2 through 6, and I want you to read it every day this week, if you wouldn't mind. I think that would be good. I see there's I think there's at least 7 things in these verses that are really important for us if we want to be involved in everyday mission. And we'll get to those. What one person said is the Lord wants to make us ready for those whom he has made ready. Lord wants to make us ready for those whom he has made ready. We've talked about this before. Before Jesus can work through me, he's got to work in me. All right? And that's the devote yourselves to prayer. That's all of that kind of thing. He wants to make us ready for those whom he has made ready. And again, then we don't have to work so hard because he's working in their hearts. He's working in their lives too. All right, here's the 7 things. Here's the first slide. I'm going to combine these first 3. So, all right, we're not going to get too long and too involved here. But these first 3 that he talks about in these first couple of verses, devote yourselves to prayer. Devote, it means you've got an attachment to. All right, you've got a commitment to, and there's you're going to persevere in prayer. Devote yourself to prayer with an alert mind. I think this is so important. Sometimes we go through life again superficially, where we're not alert to the things going on around us. We don't see those things, and then Paul says, and pray that God will open a door, or that God will give us more opportunities to share with people about Jesus. So how do we do those things? I thought of this. You probably know one. Some of you talked about how you could relate to my story last week about being stuck in the mud in my truck. I don't think anybody's going to be able to relate to this one, but I'm going to share it with you anyway. Have you ever tried driving on the interstate with just your hands? And you say, of course. No, I mean with the cruise control buttons, where you don't use your feet at all, and you hit the coast, and then you hit accelerate, and you try driving. See, I didn't think so. Nobody relates to that. I used to do that. I used to try driving. I'd be on the interstate, and I thought, it'd be a challenge to see if I could get, home until I exit. And, of course, you can't do this in town. But if I could just hit the coast, hit the accelerate, and try to do it without. Okay, so I know I'm strange. But to do that, I used to do it a lot. I used to practice in Dallas. To do that, the brake slows you down quickly. The coast button doesn't slow you down very quickly. You have to really be alert. And you really have to anticipate people moving in front of you. There's an open lane over here that I can go. You have to really be alert, and you have to really anticipate everything. I did it a couple of times. And I rarely do it anymore. I'll say that. Sometimes the challenge is too much for me to exist. Why do I say that? When we are devoting ourselves to prayer, we've got to be alert. We've got to be watchful. We've got to be mindful of what God is doing. And we got to anticipate those opportunities as well. And we've got to think, when we meet somebody for the first time, when we go into a restaurant, when we go into our job, when we have a customer, when we have a classmate, we've got to be alert and be thankful. Is God doing something in this person's life? We know he wants to. Is he? Is God going to give me an opportunity here? Pray that God will give you an opportunity. And when you do that, and you're alert to that, and you're watchful for that, then you begin to see it, and then you can do it. One of the other things that the alert mind, be watchful, the Greek there is, it's like guard against anything that's going to mess up your prayer life. I don't know that we do that very well. I don't know that we guard against that. I don't know that we make sure we're making time for that. But that's part of the being watchful and having an alert mind. And then again, praying that God will give us opportunities. The next slide, Paul says, pray that I will give this message clearly as I should, with clarity. We have a clear message. We can't let it get mixed with some other messages. And that can happen in a lot of different ways. Sometimes the message is not what people want to hear, but we still make it clear, right? We don't change the message to try and coax them in. We just give it clearly, and as the rest of the things we're going to talk about, we're going to do it in such a way that it is attractive to them. But we don't change the message. And I'll just say this. I love our country. I love what God is doing here. But my allegiance is to God, and my allegiance is to Jesus. And sometimes the message can be mixed to where it's not clear. anymore. Our first priority in our mission is our allegiance to Jesus Christ and his message, and we want to make that message really clear. All right, the next one, number 5 and 6. Paul says, be wise toward unbelievers. Live wisely, he says. Why do we need to do that? Why do we? Well, because if they're not familiar with what being a Christian is, if they're not familiar with our life, then many times they can misunderstand things if we're not living wisely, if we're just kind of speaking and going off in the wrong direction. You know, our friends may understand us, but we've got to be really wise and live wisely toward our unbelievers. And then he says, make the most of every opportunity. What does that mean? The Greek there literally means buying up time. Slow down, slow down, slow down. Make the most of every opportunity. Buy up time. The King James Version says redeeming the time. And that's actually a really good translation. I don't really like the King James. I don't know that it's real accurate, but in this case it is. Redeeming the time. It's like if you have a gift certificate or if you have a gift card, that's a gift. Well, you've got to use it, right? You've got to go redeem it, and then you are able to get something back. That's what Paul is saying about make the most of every opportunity. You've got an opportunity, you've got a gift, but you've got to use it. You've got to redeem it. You've got to redeem that time. Take advantage, make the most of every opportunity so that it becomes a gift not only for you, but for those unbelievers or those you're with. And the last one is conversation. And that's because in the last verse 6, let your conversation be gracious and attractive so that you'll have the right response for everyone. How I see this, you are either a good or a bad advertisement for Jesus Christ and living the life that he wants, that he calls us to live, that he wants to bless you with. You're either a good or bad advertisement for that. That's the gracious and attractive part. I love the fact that it just says, let your conversation, right? We're not preaching to people. We're having a conversation with them. And conversation means that we speak and then we listen. Sometimes we don't have conversations like that, but then it's not really a conversation, right? We speak, we listen, we have a conversation. There's to and fro. There's no pressure. It's what God is doing in them. It's what us sharing about what God has done for us, and it implies back and forth. And when we're talking about spiritual things, you're going to look for the right place and the right time to talk about those spiritual things. You can start out talking about football, but if all you ever do is talk about football, then you're not redeeming the time. You're not making the most of every opportunity. So pray, be alert, pray for, and look for an opportunity to talk about spiritual things in your conversations with people. I have a friend who's a fireman. He goes to Living Hope that meets here at 2 o'clock. I watched him grow up, and I listened to him. He's in the St. Paul Fire Department, and I talked with him a lot about his training and all the things that he had to go through and prepare for, and how they train to be in that situation where, you know, you're ready at a moment's notice in critical situations. Here's a picture of a fireman. Mentioned him last week. This is my grandson, Zeal. He just turned 1 last week. He is holding a fire truck. All right, so that's my fireman piece of that. You know, you've heard those. You've heard that ridiculous stuff about how grandparents talk about their grandkids all the time. I just want you to know that's not true, even though I mentioned it last week and this week. Do you know what a fireman's motto is? Do you know what the motto for firemen is? I found this out. I didn't know it. The motto for firemen is, we take care of people. I love it. On everyday mission, what should we be thinking about? Hard sell, get them, preaching at? No, taking care of them. Conversation that's gracious and attractive. Love, prayer, being alert. We take care of people. That's what Jesus did. That's what Jesus wants us to do. So, I would encourage you to Colossians 4, 2 through 6. I picked out that verse. I went to a Luther Seminary library Wednesday morning and part of the afternoon, and then I decided I need some time out. It's nice, and so I decided to walk around a lake, a local lake in the area, and then I just on my phone looked at one verse and then walked for a while and thought about that one verse and then the next line and the next line and the next line. What I did was what I was thinking about was how do I put this in my life? I wasn't thinking about what am I going to preach and say. Well, probably a little bit Sunday today, but what I was really trying to do is how am I going to put this in my life? What do I need to do differently? It's one thing to craft a lesson and teach it. It's a different thing to live it out and to practice it. And so devote yourselves to prayer. Be alert. Be watchful and thankful. Make the most of every opportunity. And I want to tell you, I had a great week. Why? Because I was just thinking about it every day. More so than I usually do. So I need to do that. We need to do that. Lloyd John Ogilvie says this, the way back to an exciting Christian life. And what he was talking about was, when he wrote the book, he was talking about Christians who are on fire for God. He said, if you want to be on fire for God, if you want to have an exciting Christian life, it's to live in momentary companionship with Christ. Everyday mission. Throughout the day. Every moment. Companionship with Christ. He's with you. God's helping you. His Spirit lives within you. So in your relationships, in your activities, in your meetings, whatever, in your problems, whatever it is, how can I shine a light and be a light of the world in this situation? I want to invite the praise team back up. Your everyday mission, I believe specifically, is to your family. Because you're with your family every day. So, spouses, serve your spouse. Think about them. Pray for them. Ask God how you can love them better. It's in your social circle. So, if you're students and you're going to school, it's with your classmates. If you got a job and you're working at your job, it's with your coworkers. And it's also with your neighbors. Everyday mission with your neighbors. Again, devote yourselves to prayer, being watchful, thankful, being alert. God, pray for more opportunities. And then if you could do this week, if you could go through these 7 things this week, I guarantee you your week will be different. And you'll probably have been given an opportunity that if you're thinking about it every day, you notice that because God's going to answer that prayer when you pray for more opportunities. And so I would encourage you to do that. I kind of did that with our 6 o'clock Friday morning men's Bible study. I kind of shared with them that this is what I'm thinking, that I need to, make sure I'm redeeming my time and not wasting my time and not wasting opportunities. And we prayed together, and I'm going to have them hold me accountable. I would encourage you to talk about it in your small groups or pick one person and be accountable to each other. Say, hey, I want to do this. I want to redeem the time. I want to make the most of every opportunity. Because this is our mission. This is what we want to be about, and it's because we want to do what Jesus is calling us to do. Let's stand and let's sing.